Also, the bench has spoken about it, saying that it's going to be asking the government essentially regarding the two-member non-Muslim requirement. So the bench has said we'll look into this after this matter was raised. Given that why should there be a non-Muslim member? This is something that the court is willing to look into. Nalini.
Yes, in fact, Sneha, Kapil Sibal had explained to the Supreme Court that there are 3 persons to represent the Muslims, chairman of 3 boards by rotation, 1 to represent the Mutawali, and 3 eminent scholars. So to that, the Chief Justice of India had asked that does this mean only 2 members, including ex-officio members, will be non-Muslims? Is it minimum 2 members will be non-Muslims, or is it maximum 2 members will be non-Muslims? Is the question that has been raised by the CJI, to which Sibal has said that it is not maximum that is mentioned. The word maximum is not mentioned, which goes on to show that there is a possibility there might be more than 2 non-Muslim members part of these administrative bodies. The Chief Justice of India said that they will seek a clarification from the centre regarding this, whether or not this inclusion of these 2 members in these administrative bodies is at least minimum 2 members should be there, or is it a maximum of 2 members should be there in these bodies who are non-Muslims. So the CJI is likely to ask the central government during the course of the arguments regarding this. What the central government response is something that we have to watch out for.
All right, developments coming in right now. Once again, Sibal has spoken about all officers, including the chief executive officers, had to be Muslims earlier. Take us to the point, Nalini, that he's making there.
Exactly. So what the basic objection that is being raised by Kapil Sibal is the fact that if in any other religion, whether it be Muslims or Sikhs or Christians, when there is no involvement of any outside persons in their administrative bodies to do with their religious endowments, why is it only being done to the Waqf properties and to the Muslim community? That is the question that Kapil Sibal has raised. He's pointed out that in all the religious endowments that belong to the Hindu communities or the Sikh communities, only the Hindus and the Sikhs are the ones who are given the responsibility to run and administer that particular institution or to run and administer that particular property. But when it comes to Waqf properties in India, there is now through this amendment an inclusion of people who are not from the Muslim community, who are not following Islam, who are going to be decision makers in these administrative bodies. So what Kapil Sibal is stating is that not only is this violative of the rights of the Muslim community, but it's also against the constitution, because it's essentially discrimination that is happening against Muslims on religious lines, because there is no other religion that is being faced with the same kind of regulation that the state is putting on the Waqf bodies and on the Muslim community through this 2025 amendment that has been brought in. As to whether or not how many members will really be part of these administrative bodies that are non-Muslims, the Chief Justice of India has said they will seek a clarification from the centre, whether it's going to be only 2 people or whether it can be more than 2 people who are non-Muslims who are part of these administrative bodies. So the CJI will question the Solicitor General of India on this particular aspect. But Kapil Sibal also said that earlier all officers, including the Chief Executive Officer, had to be Muslims. That was the provision that was stated earlier, that all administrative officers regarding the Waqf properties necessarily have to be Muslims. But that is a requirement that has been changed now. So as to whether or not non-Muslims will actually even understand how the Waqf properties need to be administered, what kind of activities need to be carried out, how those activities need to be done, is something that Kapil Sibal's raised a question mark on. He said that this should not be allowed to happen, and this is one of the several points that he has raised on the basis of which this law has been challenged before the Supreme Court on the grounds of discrimination, constitutional validity and violation of the rights of the Muslim community.
All right, these are details coming in at this point in time. Even as we speak, the matter is being heard in court today. To tell our viewers, a bunch of petitions, 73 pleas, in fact, have been clubbed together and are being heard by the Supreme Court. Nalini continues to be with us. Kapil Sibal there making these arguments before court, essentially talking about the reasons why, Nalini, and if you could once again put the spotlight on the highlights really of his argument on why the Waqf law is, snatching away the rights of Muslims, and why the government should not have brought about this law. Why this is, take us to the interventions that he's made essentially in this case.
Well, Sneha, the latest objection that is coming from Kapil Sibal before the Supreme Court is that he says that this law mandates that no Waqf can be created without creation of a Waqf deed. So what the Chief Justice of India and other judges who are part of the bench have asked Kapil Sibal rather, is that what is wrong if they are asking you to put a Waqf deed in place for the creation of a Waqf property? What is really wrong with that? So Kapil Sibal says that this actually restricts my right to create Waqf by user. It is my property. If I want it to be used in a particular manner, why should I be restrained from doing so? But to that, the judges have responded saying that you can register a Waqf. There should be no problem with registering a Waqf because that will help you also. How is that not beneficial for anybody? If you register a Waqf, there are several things that you can also get by claiming that Waqf is registered before the government of India. But Sibal in his responses says that by doing this, by making registration necessary, by making it necessary to have a Waqf deed in place, the concept of Waqf by user is diluted in its entirety because there are Waqf properties that are ranging from several hundreds of years old that are considered to be Waqf properties, but of course they don't have a Waqf deed or they don't have the proper documentation in place because that's how things were done at that particular point, where Muslims had actually given their properties, dedicated them to Allah, donated them to Allah to be used for Waqf purposes. But CJI says that there is nothing wrong in this. In fact, even Justice KV Vishwanathan, who is part of the bench, goes on to say that dedicating to Almighty is a concept of Waqf. So the section says have a deed so that you can avoid any kind of bogus claim. So what the court is saying is that registration is in everybody's best interest. If these properties are registered as Waqf properties, if there's proper documentation in place, not only is that in the interest of the government, but that's also in the interest of the people who are running this particular Waqf property, because nobody else can come from outside and claim that this property is their property, or any kind of claim cannot be made on this particular property. But on the other hand, what Kapil Sibal says is that this is not okay because there's a established concept of Waqf by user which has been taken away through this law, and through this and through the Waqf by user, there are obviously not all deeds in place regarding Waqf properties. So whether those Waqf properties are also going to be called into question by the government, whether the government will take over those properties, are all concerns that the Muslim community obviously has by these provisions that have been brought in under this law. But as to what extent the government is going to go to actually interfere into that is something that the court has said that they will ask them as to what extent Waqf by user has been abolished and to what extent the government can interfere into properties that don't actually have the proper documentation or the proper deeds in place regarding them. The court's also gone ahead and said that anything which is a government property, then these provisions will apply. As far as government property is concerned, anything that's a Waqf property, these provisions will apply. As far as the government property is concerned, it has to be decided by the collector. So Sibal says that that cannot be done. The collector process is not a judicial process. The collector's decision cannot be amenable to a court's jurisdiction. So that is what Kapil Sibal's argued, that the government cannot be a judge in their own cause. It cannot be a government officer who can decide whether or not a particular property is a Waqf property or a government property. That is what is being done now. And there are very limited grounds on the basis of which this can be challenged in court, only through a writ petition, through an Article 226 petition before the High Court or a 32 petition before the Supreme Court is how they can actually move to the Supreme Court challenging a decision that has been taken. But right now, unfettered powers are being given to the government to not only regulate these properties, but also to decide which properties are considered to be government properties and which properties are considered to be Waqf properties, which is blatantly against the rights of the community, is what Kapil Sibal is telling, Sneha.